Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the TT Time with Dr. Tarver is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. Welcome back. Here we are in week 3. The time is really moving quickly. Some of you may be enjoying a snow day today. Some of you may not be enjoying it because you had to get outside and do some shoveling or snow blowing or put some ice down in order to make sure that people didn't slip and fall. But however you are spending today, I hope you do find at least one thing that gives you some joy. So, we're in our series on strategies to save us from sabotage. First week, we talked about how important sleep is. The second week, we talked about how we don't like being told what to do. And this week, I thought it would be good for us to talk about why we have such a hard time investing in ourselves. Now, you all may remember the viral, ain't nobody got time for that. There were several images, videos, all kinds of memes that came out when Miss Sweet Brown was being interviewed following her apartment being caught on fire and her ability to be able to evacuate and get out. She was talking about the breathing issues and the smoke, and I got time for that, right? And so everybody really enjoyed that. It launched and went everywhere for in representing anytime we didn't want to do something or we weren't going to do something. Ain't nobody got time for that. Well, as we talk about why sometimes I think it's difficult for us to reach our goals, my caveat to that would be it is not that we don't have time for it, it's that we don't make time for it. Come on, Tarver, talk to him. I think I will. So, what ends up happening for us, and all of these things I've been guilty of, some of them I might be on my own porch ringing my own doorbell. But as we talk about what is required to be successful, to be able to launch, to be able to maintain, then you cannot do that without time management. And that means prioritizing whatever your goal is. And so, what ends up happening for a lot of us is that we end up prioritizing other things. And then, whatever it is that is our goal that we're trying to work on, we schedule it around other things as opposed to having it be something that's set. And then we make adjustments based on what we need to invest in it. I've talked a lot about my difficulty being able to finish writing a book. I've been writing this book for years. I literally have everything that I need in order to get this book written. People have written books since that time, and their books have come out, and I thought to myself, that should have been you. But what I don't do is I don't make space to write. So even though I've got all of this information, I don't take the time to carve out, hey, each week you're going to write this amount. And that's what's required for most any goal. So you have to set aside the time that is needed for you to be able to invest in it, whether that's an exercise goal, whether that's a weight loss goal, whether that's you meal prepping and changing your eating habits, whether that's a financial goal you have for yourself. You're not going to be able to reach those goals if you do not carve out time to work on them. If you do not ensure that you are managing your time effectively, because we'll take on a lot of things. I know a lot of us have multiple goals we're working on. What ends up happening is these other things will come in and we'll want to take care of that. It may be something that's easier for us to do. Oftentimes, we're establishing goals for ourselves. There are things that are hard to do. There are things that are going to take time, that take practice, that take money, that take investment. And so, we can fall off of them because it requires so much energy and effort from us to be able to complete it. And so we allow these other things to come in and compete with that time, right? And so because I am not effectively managing my time or I'm not carving out the time, then I will say to myself, I don't have time. When the truth is, I haven't made time. And until I make the time, I'm not going to be able to reach the goal. Sometimes we're just in a place where we're not really certain if it's worth the investment. Um, I write this book, for example. Are people going to buy this book? I'm going to have to put money up to be able to get this book created, to get it published, to get it out there, to advertise, to market. And I do that, and what if don't a lot of people buy it, and then I'm out of money? So sometimes we are evaluating the cost benefit ratio, if you will, to whether or not our investment is worth it. Sometimes we don't believe we can do it. Sometimes we don't believe we can sustain it. Maybe we've tried before and we failed. Sometimes we'll start. You know how you'll have a conversation with yourself about, maybe I don't even really want to do that. Maybe I want to move on and do something else. Maybe that was something I wanted to do at some point, and now my interests have changed, right? So we'll convince ourselves that we don't even want this thing anymore. Sometimes it is that we have not set aside the money to be able to truly invest in our goal. Oftentimes, you do have to come up with some money in order for you to reach goals, whether or not that's you changing your eating habits and you know you have to go and you have to get supplements, or that you now need to go to the fresh market and that food is a little bit higher than it might have been when you were shopping at Walmart. If it is that you need to be able to take some classes, you have to put some money away to be able to make sure that you're able to attend those classes, to be able to learn the information that you need in order for you to be able to reach your goal. There may be a certification that you have to get in order to reach your goal. You may pay for a writing seminar in order for you to be able to reach your goal. But what ends up happening is, because I haven't prioritized this goal, this investment that I have, then I have not put the money, the resources away in order for me to be able to have to invest. And so I'll say, oh, well, I'll do that later. You know, we're constantly bargaining with ourselves and telling ourselves, if this, then this. So if I get my taxes back, then I'll go ahead and make that investment. Or if I win that lottery, I'll go ahead and make that investment. And right, what we know is that when a goal isn't specific, measurable, and observable, then the likelihood of us being able to reach it is very slim. So when I'm not actually having a financial plan in place to reach my goal, then the likelihood is I'm not going to reach it. I'm going to continue to have the same kinds of patterns of behavior, and I'm going to keep putting it off. And I'm going to look up and I'm going to be 3 years later and I haven't done it. I talked about a little bit competing interests, but the truth be told is that we have a lot of things that vie for our time. So you may be a caregiver to aging parents. You may be caregiving as a parent, raising your own children. You may have a full time job. You may have a couple of jobs. You might have other commitments to your organizations, to your church. And what ends up being the case for us is, I'm going to prioritize those other things. And so then I don't feel like I'm able to do it. And truth, if we're honest with ourselves, sometimes it is challenging to be able to complete a goal. If you are, I went to a seminar, it's been some years ago now, and it was on entrepreneurship. And what the facilitator said is, if you are trying to start your own business and you're working a full time job, then that's going to make it harder for you to start your own business. Why? Because you're going to be trying to make this money to be able to live on, right? So if you know that this entrepreneurship opportunity is the only thing you have, you're going to put your time into that. You're going to invest in that. All of that time you didn't have, you're going to find you put a lot of hours into something when it's yours, because you're getting the full benefit from it. But also, if you don't invest, if you don't have people patronizing you, then you're not going to be able to sustain yourself. And so he actually recommended, you don't need to have a full time job where it is going to meet all your needs, because then it's going to make it much harder for you. So you got to be a little hungry, he said, for you got to need it. And that's what drives us. If you think about it, is I do it because I have to. I do it because I need to. If I know I'm not going to have enough money to be able to sustain myself and get out here and hustle, if you will. So if it's mine, this thing, this goal, this investment that I'm making in myself, then that's where my time, energy, and effort is going to go. Sometimes we have goals and they're just not anything that we're going to be able to sustain, because we didn't really think about all the aspects of what would be needed. And that could include a lot of things. We mentioned the training piece a little bit, like maybe I don't have the right training to understand all of the different aspects of it. For example, as an entrepreneur, when I first started out in private practice, I had an accounting firm, and the person who was my accountant didn't really sit down with me and talk to me about establishing this business and how much money you have to pay and how to set it up. She almost made it seem like I had options, but truth be told, you really don't have options. If you're going to set up a healthy business, then you have to set up healthy business practices. So for any of you that know about paying taxes, being able to put into your own um, retirement plan, being able to fund your own insurance, like that's all a part of owning your own business. And a lot of times we don't understand all of those things. It is much more expensive for you independently to have to fund your health insurance. It is much more expensive, if you will, when you don't have someone matching your retirement investment. So if I've got somebody matching at 50% what I put in, then look how much my retirement, my investment can grow versus if I'm the only person that's putting in. Not thinking about that I could go and not pay these taxes and that would give me more money every time that I earn income, but those taxes are still going to be due. And so what ends up happening for a lot of people who are trying to be entrepreneurs because they didn't set up their tax practices in a way that was healthy, then now I'm trying to come up with all these thousands of tens of thousands of dollars at the end of the year when it's time for me to pay taxes and I don't have it. Because again, we have this mindset, and this deals with our relationship around money. A lot of us don't have the best relationship around money with regard to how money works. We use money as a means to be able to survive and to get the things we need, but we don't understand how money actually works for us in terms of every dollar has a place. And so those dollars I'm bringing in, like they have a place with regard to how I pay my taxes. Now, for me, that's monthly and quarterly because I pay estimated taxes so that I don't have to pay so much at the end of the year. Now, I'm not one that gets a huge refund, but I'm also not one that has to pay a bunch of money back either. So it breaks even. And if you listen to the tax experts, that's what they tell you. They will tell you you want to break even. Like we're in this mindset of, oh, I should be getting all this money back, which is sometimes why we end up going through some not as honest practices with regard to some of the people we use to file our taxes, not realizing that we're liable for that if the IRS ever comes back and assesses us. And I've known a lot of people who have been audited, who are business owners. It's typically small business owners who are going to get audited. And one of the things that flags people is the amount of money you're getting back on a return. Like, why are you getting so much money back? As a business owner, that's a flag to us, right? Because I don't want to be paying more than I should. As you see, for a lot of the billionaires, they work really hard to pay the least amount of taxes that they can. So why would you be overpaying to a point that you would need such a you should be getting a large refund back? So I think that that's a good example of sometimes how we like don't know exactly what it is that is required for us to be able to reach that goal. And even as we talk about financing strategies, if you are a small business owner or you're looking to create a business, what options are available to help you with financing, getting your business started? Sometimes we don't really fully understand what all that will entail, the collateral that is needed to be able to have a secured loan versus a non-secured loan. Sometimes we're going through agencies that are kind of predatory lenders, if you will, to be able to try to get this money. And then now I owe you this money. I'm not making enough of that money to be able to pay you back. So then that's when I start having to do creative things to be able to have more income coming in. But then that sets me up for failure in the long run. But I also think just in terms of sometimes we don't get the best recommendations. We don't necessarily have the best advice from people. So we're looking to other people who may be doing this thing that we want to do. Maybe they have been able to master the weight loss. Maybe they've been able to get on that healthy eating plan. Maybe they have been able to get that home, whatever that goal is. And so we're looking to them for guidance and not necessarily doing our own research or getting additional information. And so what worked for them may not necessarily work for us. And so the foundation we built was a foundation that worked for them, but it isn't something that we're able to maintain. And so what ends up happening is when I feel like I fail, like most of the time we'll stop. When I feel like I'm not seeing that progress, most of the time we're going to stop. When I don't feel like I'm getting a return on that investment, most of the time we're going to stop. And that feeds into some of the comparison behavior. So as we're looking at what other people are doing and what's happening for them, and it's not happening for us, not even thinking that all of us are different. Our foundations could have been different. What they had available to them in terms of resources and getting started could have looked different. We all have different bodies that we're dealing with. We all have different health conditions that may affect how we're doing different things and how our body is affected. Our diet affects that, right? Um, your genes, so many of these other things that we're not thinking about. So we're just looking at someone else's outcome and we're thinking, oh well, I'm not going to be able to do that, or if I was going to be able to be successful, it would have happened by now, because look at this person, they're already on 3 trucks in their fleet. And I think a lot of times too, when we're creating goals for ourselves, a lot of times we're looking at other people to even think about what a goal might be for us. A lot of people went into, for example, truck driving, thinking that, okay, like, hey, this is a great field for me. I can be independent in this, especially for people that have the flexibility, like to travel, have maybe the support at home if you've got kids, but not realizing how much money that it costs to maintain your own truck, when you've got to buy your own tires, when you've got to buy your own gas, when you've got to have your own insurance, and you're getting loads that aren't necessarily going to cover the cost of all that overhead. Whereas when you were with a company, you were able to see your proceeds better because the company was absorbing a lot of that overhead cost for you. And so, again, sometimes we're just not necessarily as well informed and equipped and able to understand some of these things. And so what ends up happening, now I gotta let that truck go back. The dually truck was a big one that was out there. People were like, oh, I'm gonna get a dually, I'll be able to do all of these things. But to be able to have the kind of customer base that would allow you to do that, a lot of people haven't built that up yet. Wanting to be on social media and be an influencer and being able to get paid for it, and recognizing, like, oh wait, you have to have a lot of followers in order to be able to do that, and for someone to even invest in you to be able to think it would be worth it to have you advertise a product for them. Like, you're not going to be able to do that if you've got, like, 5, 10, 15, 20 followers, or even 200. Like, those aren't big numbers. People want you to be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, preferably, in order for you to be able to benefit them. And so being able to recognize that, a lot of us started podcasts during the pandemic, and how many of those podcasts actually got to a point where they were funded, where people are paying them. Not a lot. If you follow one of my favorite people, Tabitha Brown, she talked about how long it was before she was able to see a return on her investment. And now, she's got all kinds of things out there. But that started from people finding her during the pandemic and her being able to blow up. That's not everybody's experience. And you can do the same thing that a Tabitha Brown did, and it still will not result in the success that she had. And so that's where, that, again, that comparison behavior can be really difficult, and detrimental to us, because it doesn't set up for us a realistic plan that we can sustain. I also will say that a lot of times we don't have the right accountability, the right healthy support in place in order for us to be successful. I think for a lot of us, we feel like, okay, well, my family will support me. I have friends that'll support me. And I will tell you that a lot of business owners will tell you that it's not their friends and family that's supporting them. And sometimes people will tell you that it is your friends and family that will be working against you. And so if you're just relying on that, then one, it limits your base, and it also limits you to who they know. So let's say you do have a supportive family. That's only going to be a portion of your proceeds, and everybody may not be able to maintain support of you. They may have started out, they may have given you an investment, but they won't be able to keep that up. So if you don't have any other additional resources and funds coming in, or any other products that are coming in that are going to allow you to reach whatever this goal is, then you're still going to get to a point where it's not sustainable. And so I think sometimes for us, And again, this is the limitation sometimes we put on ourselves of thinking that those are the only people that can be your support and your accountability. And I know a lot of times people have had negative experiences when they've gone to do a consultation, or they've hired some people, or they're trying to work with people, and they felt like they didn't get good quality service, or that the person took their ideas and profited off them. And so I'm not going to tell you that it is something that's easy. Again, you do have to do your research, and sometimes we can try a person and realize, okay, that's not a good fit, and I have to try someone else. But it's being able to stick with it enough to be able to figure out what that accountability and support is going to look like for you. You may have to join a group in order to be able to get that support and accountability. And yes, there might be a cost associated with joining. There are a lot of groups that talk to people about being entrepreneurs and making their first million, and they are going to be on you to see how serious you are. And if you're not serious, they're not going to be making those investments. And so sometimes people are getting frustrated and upset about what they feel like they received from a company when they themselves didn't put any investment in. So we sometimes have to ask ourselves, if somebody were to evaluate how serious I was about whatever this goal is, would my investment reflect that I was serious about it? Would my investment reflect that I really was trying to make significant changes, receive that feedback, and grow? Or would my level of investment reflect that this is something that I pick up occasionally when it benefits me, or when it's convenient, or when I'm bored? I think that's the other piece, is can you make the sacrifices? I don't know of a lot of significant goals, I'll say it in this way, that don't involve some sort of sacrifice. It may be a short term sacrifice, it could be a longer term sacrifice, particularly if you are trying to address areas of difficulty for you. So if you don't have the good foundation of a relationship with money, for example, then if you don't get a handle on your finances, that is going to continuously be something that interferes with you being able to grow. And so that sacrifice may be, hey, I got a shopping addiction, and I gotta put a hold on that. I got all these credit cards out here, they got these high balances, I gotta get them paid off. I have to have a financial plan that is going to allow me to be able to save money and put money aside to be able to do the things that are going to help me reach this goal, instead of spending it because I have it. And so, yeah, that does mean you're going to have to say no to some things. You're seeing everybody travel. Why am I not being able to travel? I may not be in a place where I can travel right now because I have some other goals that I'm working toward. When people are going out and they're like, oh, hey, we're going to go to this restaurant, and they're offering you drinks and they're telling you to share this food, and you have a weight loss goal, and that you are eliminating certain things from your diet, or at the very least reducing them, then just because somebody offers doesn't mean you have to accept. But that does mean that I have to make the sacrifice. Like, I might be over there smelling it, it smells delicious, I want some, getting some cravings going on, but I have to say to myself, this goal I have is worth this sacrifice. When you don't want to go to that gym, right? Because you're tired and you have other things, like, oh, I'm behind at work. I need to be able to go in a little earlier or stay a little later to get some things done. But you made that sacrifice and you said, I have a cutoff time. I'm going to the gym because, again, I'm scheduling the thing that I'm investing in. And so I'm not going to sacrifice it because something else of a competing interest is available. I'm going to carve out that time and I'm going to be consistent with it. So I go to the gym, and I'll figure out how I'm going to navigate some of those other things when I come back from the gym. So these are the things that are important to us, because if you're not willing to make sacrifices, I think short and long term, but also consistently, because there may come the ebbs and flows. I might be living in the land of plenty for a minute, and then I have to make some adjustments. Like, oh, I got to rethink my strategy. I'm losing customers. This base isn't producing, or my costs have gone up, and I need to generate extra resources. And so, what sacrifices am I willing to make to do that? If you all follow Kev on stage, Kevin Fredericks, who has also blown up, I think, during the past several years. He is doing his first self produced comedy tour, and he talked about, people will make posts like, oh, you always, doing this corny stuff trying to self promote. And he said, if you understand what it takes in order to self-produce a show, to be able to pay for that venue, to be able to pay for all of the people that are going to be working in that venue, to pay all of the people who are going to be on this tour with you, then you know that part of that is absolutely self-promotion, because who is going to sell these tickets? Who's going to fill these seats if not me? And so I think sometimes we have to also be able to get outside of what in our heads we feel like we should be doing, to really think about what it takes to be able to get something to come to fruition. And yes, that does mean that you're going to be plugging it. You may be passing out stuff, talking about stuff, to the point of people rolling their eyes, right? Because that's your level of investment in whatever it is that you are stating that you're committed to making happen, right? Whether that's that exercise goal, that financial goal, that healthy eating goal, the being consistent in taking your medication, um, being able to finish something, being able to go back and finish school that you didn't finish. There are some people who have a goal of being able to go back and get that GED, but they're not making the time to do it, right? So when I'm out here and people are talking to me about all these other things, I need to be like, hey, well, I need to be over here in this GED class, because that was something that I said was important to me, and I wanted to reach this goal by this deadline. So, how do we address these things, so that we do make time for it? I covered some of the things in here, but I do want to really highlight a few things and talk about why it is important for us to invest. So you do know you need a specific plan, right? We talked about the SMART goals, specific, measurable, being able to have that accountability, something that's realistic, and having a timeline uh, by which you're going to meet that goal. But also being able to identify who is going to be able to give you that foundation that you need in order to reach the goal, and how you're going to be able to modify your plan when you need to, because we do need to have something in place to be able to evaluate ourselves and see when we're progressing and when we're not. And as you're making sure that you are setting this time aside, that whenever you are considering other things, that you prioritize them. And so not everything needs to be a priority. So if you have something that you're working on, like, it should be in that top couple of priorities. It shouldn't be down to five, six, or seven, so that you're so tired that you don't have the capacity to be able to fully commit to it, and that it may require you to be able to let go of some things, that are less of a priority, or maybe not allowing you to be able to make the gains that you want to make. And so that plan is very important for investment. Why do we want to invest in ourselves? You get a lot of just satisfaction and joy when you complete something, when you are walking in your purpose, when you have been able to get off that medication because you've made those changes. Now you're healthier and you're able to, not be winded, go up the stairs. You are able to fit into the clothes in the regular store and not have to go into that plus section. When you're able to run around with the kids and not be out of breath, when you're able to have a month where the profits have exceeded the cost. So you brought more in than you've had to write checks for to go out. That feels really good, because it is then like, hey, I did it. I invested in myself and I made it because I'm worth it, which is that next component. That self worth significantly increases when you're able to reach a goal, when you're able to see it come to fruition. Because often we're talking ourselves out of these goals because we don't think we have what it takes to do it. We don't feel like we're competent enough. We don't feel like we're talented enough. We don't feel like we're attractive enough. We don't feel like we have the capacity to be successful enough. When you reach that goal, it allows you to have different data points. Like, yeah, I absolutely do. I do have expertise in this area. I am someone who does an outstanding job with this. I am someone who people will want to come to for this product. I do have this talent. I have this capacity. And so when you are able to see the fruits of that labor, that allows you to be able to remember those things that sometimes fall into the sea of forgetfulness when we're in that negative critical place because we haven't met that goal. Also, reaching your goals elevates you to the next level. Like, sometimes we're wondering like why we're stagnant and we're not growing, and feel like we've gotten complacent and we're doing the same things, and that's because we haven't challenged ourselves to meet a goal. So it's not allowing us to be able to grow. When you reach that goal, it takes you to another level, and on that next level, then you see your potential to do other things. And also, like, just making connections. Sometimes when you're in a different space and in a different, from looking from a different perspective, you see connections with people, you see opportunities that you wouldn't have not have seen if you stayed in the same place that you were in. So I will tell you that there is not anything that you're going to be able to do, complete, have come to fruition without you investing in it. But I will also tell you that you are absolutely worth that investment. All right, be well.